Did civilization arrive gently, like the first light of dawn, or did it awaken already carrying scars from something older it refused to name? The earliest Sumerians offer no clear answer, only traces left on clay tablets, faint fingerprints pressed into the soft mud of history. Their writing does not celebrate invention as miraculous. It appears suddenly, fully formed, confident, administrative, deliberate, already burdened with counting, measuring, naming, regulating. Nothing trembles with awe. Everything moves as though joining a story already in progress. The absence of explanation, the refusal to articulate beginnings, is heavier than any declaration. It leaves behind a silence where origins should be, a quiet gap that hums with unanswered questions. In Uruk, one of the earliest cities, urban life seems not to emerge gradually, but decisively. Walls rise, labor is organized, calendars are standardized, beliefs are codified. Tools, seals, and myths do not appear tentative. They behave like inheritances, as if knowledge itself had been passed down from a previous age. Archaeologists call this momentum progress, but the texture of the evidence hints at something subtler and more unsettling. Memory, not invention. Recollection, not creation. Civilization does not feel like a first step here. It feels like a return. Sumerian myths begin after order already exists. Kings descend from the heavens, not as gifts to primitives, but as restorers after catastrophe. Gods do not create ex nihilo. They negotiate, repair, and contain what has already emerged. Even the universe itself seems warm, marked by prior loss. Floods, ruin, abandonment. These are not fears of the unknown, but memories resurfacing. Layers of destruction beneath the earliest cities reveal repeated cycles. Silt, ash, collapsed brick, seasonal floods, war, neglect, all are possible causes. Yet the Sumerians themselves speak of deluges not as spectacle, but as trauma. Survival is quiet, almost reluctant. Rebuilding follows, but reflection disappears. Temples are restored. Names are recorded. The world resets, but the questions vanish. This pattern repeats. Collapse, silence, reconstruction. Writing narrows. Knowledge shrinks. Astronomical observation persists, but wonder recedes. Medical knowledge survives, yet speculation thins. Civilization is narrowing itself, deliberately trimming away that which cannot be standardized. Even later generations, who treat the Sumerians as ancestors, struggle to read their earliest tablets. Symbols harden. Language loses elasticity. Memory becomes mechanical. What disappears is not violently erased. It is softened, blurred, allowed to fade. And still, the Sumerians offer no lament for what was lost. They mourn kings, temples, and cities, but never understanding. The absence itself becomes the message. This is not merely a story of survival. It is a story of restraint. The Sumerians did not forget because they were careless. They forgot because remembering was dangerous. Curiosity could fracture unity. Memory could destabilize order. The clay tablets, the king lists, the temples, all speak not of triumph, but of preparation. Their calendars do not anticipate novelty. They track recurrence, measuring days not to herald progress, but to maintain balance with forces already known to fail. Time is structured to prevent surprise. Floods, droughts, divine withdrawal, all follow patterns, all are rehearsed. In such a world, endings are more fundamental than beginnings. In the earliest layers of Mesopotamia, the emergence of cities is not tentative. It is abrupt, deliberate, and striking in its certainty. Uruk expands with purpose. Streets are planned. Walls rise with precision. Labor is organized into vast, coordinated projects. Tools, calendars, and seals do not appear as experiments. They arrive like inherited mandates. Every brick laid, every canal dug, every ritual performed is part of a continuum, a careful choreography of continuity. Civilization here does not stumble forward into novelty. It returns to what already exists, shaping it, ordering it, controlling it. Creation is not celebrated. Survival is structured. Yet beneath this appearance of smooth functionality lies a rhythm of tension, of repeated fragility. Archaeologists uncover layers of destruction beneath these early cities: ash, flood silt, broken brick, the debris of lives interrupted. Some attribute these layers to natural forces, seasonal floods, soil salinization, droughts that wither crops. Others see them as the consequences of human choices: war, overextension, mismanagement. But the Sumerians themselves tell the story differently. Their flood narratives do not marvel at survival. They recount endurance with quiet, restrained acknowledgement. Catastrophe is not mythic theater. It is recorded as fact, remembered not for glory, but for its inevitability. The survivors do not ask why the world was remade. They accept that it must be remade, again and again. The pattern is relentless. Destruction followed by reconstruction. Reflection followed by forgetting. Temples rise, crumble, and rise again. Kings reign, die, and are succeeded. Trade networks flourish, dissolve, and reconfigure elsewhere. Writing itself narrows, moving from poetic narrative to administrative rigidity. Knowledge is no longer expansive. It becomes functional, procedural, sparse. Astronomical observations survive, yet cosmological wonder diminishes. Medical texts persist, but philosophical inquiry thins. Civilizations that follow would look back at the Sumerians as ancestors, yet they fail to grasp the subtleties embedded in these earliest records. Symbols harden, grammar stiffens, and the meaning once open to interpretation becomes fixed, unyielding, a tool of order rather than insight. This narrowing is not accidental. It aligns with the cycles of destruction and reconstruction, with the repeated reassertion of social and cosmic order after chaos. Forgetting becomes deliberate. In the king lists, rulers are assigned reigns stretching impossibly into deep antiquity, tens of thousands of years. Modern scholars dismiss these numbers as symbolic exaggeration, but symbols are deliberate acts. By anchoring authority in unreachable pasts, the present is insulated from challenge. Comparison is rendered impossible. Innovation is curtailed before it can destabilize. Memory, carefully curated, becomes a foundation not for curiosity, but for stability. Even the environment participates in this pattern. Southern Mesopotamia's soils gradually poisoned themselves under the strain of irrigation. Fields once fertile became salt-laden, yields declined, and populations shifted northward. Nature and human ambition collided, creating fragility disguised as progress. Civilization, it seems, carried the seeds of its own diminishment from the outset. Growth is never neutral. Every advance demands sacrifice, a quiet extraction whose consequences are felt only centuries later. Collapse is not sudden. It is patient, inevitable, rehearsed. Yet in all this, what lingers most is the tone embedded in Sumerian records, not despair, not outrage, but quiet acceptance. The world ends, returns, ends again. Gods withdraw favor. Cities fall, people rebuild. And no record exists asking whether this cycle might have been broken. Perhaps such questions were once asked and then erased. Or perhaps they were never permitted to take shape. The absence itself is a clue, a deliberate omission. A civilization that meticulously documents grain, labor, stars, and rituals yet refuses to examine origins is revealing more than it conceals. Silence becomes a technology. Forgetting becomes strategy. The Sumerians understood that some knowledge could destabilize continuity. To survive in dense, complex urban societies, some memories were liabilities. Curiosity was risky. Speculation threatened cohesion. In these circumstances, forgetting was not loss. It was preservation. Memory itself was filtered, curated, shaped to reinforce the structures necessary for survival. Records, rituals, and kingship were not inventions of progress. They were instruments of endurance. Civilization's focus was not on beginnings, but on balance, on maintaining what already existed, defending it against the erosion of time and the unpredictability of nature. This orientation shaped every aspect of life. Calendars did not mark novelty, they measured recurrence. Rituals did not celebrate awe, they maintained alignment with forces known to fail. Catastrophe was procedural, divinity obedient to older rules. Even the gods were not creators in the Sumerian worldview. They were overseers of function, conditional and temporary. Their withdrawal was not punishment but consequence. Temples required care, offerings, attention. Neglect risked collapse not because of divine wrath, but because order itself was precarious. Civilization existed on borrowed time, a fragile equilibrium maintained through vigilance and repetition. And so the earliest Sumerians teach a lesson rarely acknowledged. Survival often requires forgetting. To remember too much, to remember alternatives, failures, possibilities outside the structure, is destabilizing. The past must be curated, limited, and sometimes erased. What is preserved is chosen for its utility. What disappears is deliberate. In this way, the Sumerians were not merely recorders of history. They were its careful architects, sculpting reality to ensure endurance, teaching modern observers a subtle but unsettling truth. Memory is not always liberation. It can be a burden. Knowledge can be a risk. Civilization, at its birth, was already learning the art of restraint. As Sumerian cities solidified, the act of writing evolved from a communal, flexible practice into a concentrated instrument of control. Early cuneiform was alive, adaptive, a medium that bent to context, gesture, and memory. A single wedge in clay could carry sound, meaning, image, and implication all at once. The scribe was a participant, an observer, an interpreter of the shared reality of the community. Knowledge was embodied in ritual, performance, and conversation. It flowed freely, coexisting with myth, work, and memory. But as urban life intensified, as labor, trade, and governance expanded, writing became professionalized. The scribe emerged as a distinct figure, a gatekeeper, a custodian, a mediator between what was remembered and what was recorded. Ambiguity, once a tool for reflection and interpretation, became inefficiency. Symbols hardened, grammar stiffened. Signs lost their pliancy. The fluidity of meaning was replaced by permanence. What was recorded demanded obedience, not understanding. Knowledge stratified, memory acquired rank, and literacy became a mechanism of authority. With this shift, the very relationship between humans and knowledge transformed. Observation, lived experience, and communal memory slowly gave way to fixed records. Reality began to bend toward what was written, and what was written became a framework through which the world itself was understood. Questions that could not be codified, that resisted classification, that suggested alternatives to the accepted order, faded into irrelevance. Wonder became warning. Curiosity was recast as risk. The Sumerians do not describe this process explicitly. It is inscribed in the structure of their texts, in the narrowing of language, in the increasing specificity of record-keeping. Medical texts, for instance, list symptoms and treatments with precision, yet rarely probe causes beyond the practical. Astronomical observations meticulously track celestial patterns, but the cosmic meaning, the philosophical speculation, recedes. The heavens are no longer a partner in understanding. They are a system to be monitored, cataloged, and managed. The universe shrinks to fit the city. Omens and predictions replace inquiry. Signs are read not to inspire reflection, but to prevent disruption. Knowledge, once a landscape of shared experience, becomes defensive, functional, enforceable. This narrowing extends into every facet of civic life. Legal codes multiply, boundaries are clarified, punishments are specified. Temples and administrative offices adopt standardization, reducing flexibility, minimizing variance. Even the gods are absorbed into bureaucracy. Their roles are defined, their authority codified. They become overseers of procedure rather than sources of revelation. Divine favor is conditional, predictable. Withdrawal of the gods does not shock. It is procedural. Collapse does not arrive as punishment or moral reckoning. It arrives as consequence, as part of the rhythm of survival. The process of forgetting, the deliberate pruning of memory, is mirrored in these bureaucratic expansions. Every record, every ritual, every legal specification serves a dual purpose: to maintain order and to limit reflection. To remember too widely, to entertain alternatives, to recall disorder outside the sanctioned narrative becomes dangerous. Knowledge is curated, memory is filtered. What is retained is that which reinforces stability. What is lost is that which could destabilize it. Even mythic narratives reflect this narrowing. Epic stories such as the Gilgamesh cycle focus less on creative exploration than on endurance and measured consequence. Heroes seek survival, not enlightenment. They return not transformed, but resigned to the limits of existence. In Sumerian practice, this orientation is self-reinforcing. Repetition replaces reflection. Rituals are enacted with precision, not interpretation. Festivals and sacred events maintain cosmic order rather than question it. Kingship is anchored in ancient lists, whose impossible antiquity removes the past from scrutiny. Authority flows downward from these unreachable points, insulated from critique. The past is invoked as justification, never as a source of insight. Civilization, in this sense, becomes a system of rehearsal, maintaining continuity at the expense of depth. And yet, within this meticulous order, there lingers the faint trace of awareness, a subtle unease that civilization itself is fragile. The Sumerians encoded warnings within records, layers of sediment marking floods, abrupt shifts in population, sudden breaks in material culture. Symbols persist, even as their meanings harden, hinting at prior knowledge that could not be fully preserved. Omissions echo like quiet pressure, a residue of what was once understood, what was once possible, what was deliberately left behind. This restraint, this careful narrowing of attention and action, is not failure. It is a survival strategy. The Sumerians learned that memory could fracture cohesion, that speculation could destabilize order, that knowledge of alternatives might threaten survival. By shaping what was remembered and what was recorded, they created a civilization capable of enduring centuries of environmental strain, social complexity, and political fragility. Forgetting became functional. Forgetting became structural. Forgetting became civilization itself. The lesson is subtle, but profound. The evolution of knowledge from flexible, communal memory to codified, enforceable record illustrates a civilization learning to endure by controlling itself, by constraining curiosity, and by institutionalizing selective memory. The clay tablets, inscribed and hardened, carry not only what was recorded, but the absence of what was deliberately omitted. Each wedge pressed into wet clay is an act of mediation between human understanding and the imperatives of survival. And in that mediation, we see the shadow of everything that follows: the emergence of administrative authority, the dominance of practicality over speculation, the consolidation of knowledge into enforceable structures, and the quiet erosion of imaginative possibility. Even as the Sumerians codified knowledge, their cities remained exposed to forces that could not be fully tamed. The land itself was a partner in fragility. Southern Mesopotamia, crisscrossed by the Tigris and Euphrates, demanded constant negotiation. Canals required upkeep, fields needed careful attention, and yet the very methods that enabled abundance also contained the seeds of failure. Intensive irrigation, necessary to feed dense populations, gradually salinized the soil. Fertile fields grew bitter with salt, yields diminished, and the rhythm of survival shifted northward to lands less exhausted, less disciplined, less obedient to human design. The environment did not forgive error, it enforced memory. Floods, once awe-inspiring, became calculations. When waters rose beyond expectation, destruction followed with a quiet inevitability. Cities were layered atop layers of earlier habitation, evidence of repeated collapse and reconstruction. Archaeologists now uncover bands of silt, ash, and brick fragments that tell a story of cyclic ruin. Yet the Sumerians themselves interpreted these events differently. The floods and calamities were not signs of divine anger or moral failure, but inevitable corrections, procedural occurrences in a universe that demanded vigilance. Catastrophe was anticipated, ritualized, and managed, not moralized. Collapse was neither tragic nor surprising. It was rehearsed. The recurring pattern of destruction and rebuilding shaped how civilization understood time and memory. Each collapse erased some of what had been, and each reconstruction selectively restored order. Knowledge was pruned. Lists resumed, temples were repaired, names were recorded again. But reflection, the deeper questioning of origins, of cause, of alternative paths, was consistently left aside. Entire practices, once meaningful and expansive, disappeared. Rituals were standardized, art narrowed, law multiplied to maintain cohesion. Even myth became a tool of preservation rather than speculation. Memory was no longer a landscape to explore. It was a scaffold to maintain. This rhythm of loss and restoration is embedded in the very tone of Sumerian texts. Their laments speak in the first person, not of terror or despair, but of quiet acceptance. Cities describe abandonment as natural. Walls crumble, temples empty, gods depart. Civilization is framed not as achievement, but as endurance, a continuous rehearsal of maintaining the possible against the inevitable. Kingship is temporary, granted and withdrawn according to forces beyond human control. Authority is less about creation than caretaking, less about vision than preservation. Innovation is suspect, stability is sacred. And yet, within this acceptance lies deliberate attention. Forgetting is strategic. Memory is curated. The past is not lost to negligence, but shaped, filtered, and guided. Knowledge that might destabilize cohesion is allowed to fade. Curiosity is circumscribed. Speculation becomes dangerous. Early flexibility in writing, in ritual, in civic memory is replaced by rigidity designed to protect against the unknown. Tablets multiply, yet understanding thins. Observed experience is replaced by codified rules. Written procedure outpaces lived wisdom. The city, the state, and the ritual all become instruments to enforce continuity. Environmental pressures reinforce this narrowing. The land resists permanence. Rivers shift unpredictably. Soil degrades. Climatic variability and human overuse interact to produce a fragile balance. Every intervention, while increasing short-term productivity, carries long-term consequences. The system must be continuously managed, and management favors what can be measured and controlled. Complexity that cannot be codified is treated as risk. Memory that cannot be disciplined is allowed to erode. The act of forgetting is not absence. It is technique. Forgetting becomes functional. In the repetition of collapse and reconstruction, civilization internalizes the lessons of survival. Catastrophe is never merely external. It is a parameter around which social, political, and religious practices are designed. Festivals, legal codes, and administrative routines are all calibrated to anticipate failure, absorb disruption, and maintain order. Even the gods are implicated in this framework. They are not omnipotent creators, but administrators of continuity. Their favor is conditional. Their absence is procedural. Civilization is sustained by their oversight, yet it is fragile enough that their withdrawal triggers systemic collapse. And through this framework, we see a profound inversion. Stability demands forgetting, and survival requires narrow attention. To preserve life, to maintain the city, to ensure continuity, the past must be pruned. The more complex, the more flexible, the more uncertain, the more destabilizing knowledge is deemed. The Sumerians understood that endurance is not measured by the accumulation of memory, but by the ability to contain it, to codify it, and when necessary, to let it fade. Forgetting is intentional. Forgetting is care. Forgetting is civilization. Even as we read these records today, we sense the deliberate shaping of attention. The clay tablets carry not only what is recorded, but what is omitted. They echo with absences, gaps, and silences. In those silences, we encounter the residue of restraint, the careful management of knowledge, the deliberate avoidance of alternatives that could destabilize cohesion. Civilization, in this light, appears not as unbroken ascent, but as a careful choreography of survival, a continuous negotiation with fragility, a constant balancing between what must be preserved and what must be allowed to vanish. As the Sumerian world narrows inward, as memory is curated and knowledge constrained, one begins to see the cost of endurance. Civilization survives, but it does so at a price. Depth is sacrificed for stability, speculation for procedure, curiosity for continuity. The quiet hum of absence in the clay tablets, in the laments for cities lost and kings departed, carries more meaning than the records themselves. It is here, in the silences, that the Sumerians' true lessons emerge. They show that survival is not only about what is preserved, but also about what is deliberately left behind. Every system they built, every ritual they repeated, every calendar they maintained, reinforced a singular priority: continuity. Beginnings are ignored, alternatives dismissed, origins left unexamined. What is written is not a story of discovery, but a record of containment. Civilization, in their vision, is less a triumph of invention and more a careful navigation of risk. Knowledge becomes a tool for survival rather than transformation. Memory, once vibrant and expansive, becomes selective and protective. Even awe, once inspiring, is folded into maintenance. And yet, this narrowing is not a failure, it is a strategy. The Sumerians understood fragility, instability, and the weight of history. They witnessed cycles of destruction and rebuilding. They saw what happened when chaos was left unchecked. From this recognition, they crafted systems that endured, even when the costs were invisible. Forgetting became methodical, structured, and intentional. What might have been lost to curiosity was sacrificed for coherence. What might have been remembered for reflection was ceded to the imperative of order. In this careful curation lies a quiet genius, a civilization that mastered survival by restraining itself, by shaping memory, and by controlling the narrative of its own existence. The consequences ripple outward. Later civilizations inherit tools, laws, rituals, and symbols, but rarely the awareness of the delicate balance that originally produced them. Kings appear ordained rather than provisional. Cities appear inevitable rather than reconstructed, and writing appears as invention rather than compromise. The original restraint is misread as authority, the deliberate forgetting as absence. What began as survival becomes tradition, and tradition solidifies into the foundation of history itself. The Sumerians' wisdom persists silently, embedded in structures, calendars, and tablets, guiding the choices of civilizations that follow. Yet, beneath the order, a tension remains. Something essential: an awareness of fragility, a recognition of alternatives. The knowledge of loss is perpetually present but unspoken. Civilization functions, endures, and organizes itself with remarkable efficiency. But the cost of that endurance is subtle. The narrowing of thought, the soft erosion of imagination, the sacrifice of possibility. Survival has succeeded, but understanding in its full breadth has not. What was preserved was structure. What was lost was depth. In the quiet spaces of this history, in the pauses between recorded events, in the absence of beginnings and the ritualized repetition of endings, a message lingers. It is a caution without words, that endurance requires sacrifice, that stability demands restraint, and that memory, when curated, becomes both tool and limitation. Civilization is not a straight line from chaos to triumph, but a corridor built through careful selection, deliberate omission, and the constant balancing of risk. The Sumerians understood this. They understood that the past is dangerous, that knowledge can destabilize, and that sometimes forgetting is the greatest act of preservation. As we look back across millennia, as we read the tablets, reconstruct the cities, and follow the rhythms of floods, labor, and ritual, we perceive not just the achievements of the Sumerians, but the shadow of their restraint. We see that the legacy they left is not only in what they built, but in how they built it. Thoughtfully, cautiously, deliberately. The world they shaped was designed to endure, even if it could never capture the fullness of what had come before. And so, when we contemplate the rise and fall of civilizations, when we measure their achievements against the sweep of time, we must recognize what the Sumerians preserved in silence. It was not the totality of understanding, not the wild exuberance of invention, not the depth of reflection, but a civilization that learned to survive by mastering the art of forgetting. Their enduring lesson hums softly beneath every brick, every tablet, every ritual, whispering that the persistence of civilization relies as much on what is left behind as on what is carried forward. Over generations, human thought and imagination begin to narrow, not through force, but through habit. People learn not only to obey, but to think within sanctioned limits, as if the boundaries themselves were invisible yet undeniable. Imagination contracts quietly, unnoticed, and the evidence of this quiet self-restraint emerges in the archaeological record. Material culture grows less diverse, regional variation diminishes, and standardization spreads with a calm inevitability. Civilization, in its efficiency and uniformity, becomes increasingly fragile, even as it appears orderly and resilient. When disruption finally arrives, floods, famine, invasion, the impact is widespread, amplified by the very homogeneity that once ensured cohesion. Collapse accelerates because uniformity leaves no room for flexible adaptation. Yet, rather than reconsider, societies restore. The same systems are rebuilt, the same assumptions reinstated, the exhausted land worked again. Memory becomes circular. It repeats rather than adapts. This repetition suggests a loyalty not to outcomes, but to form itself. The Sumerians exemplify this tension. They were devoted to a vision of order that had become inseparable from survival. To abandon it would feel like erasing identity. Yet identity rooted in control carries risk. When circumstances shift beyond manageable parameters, the rigidity that once protected them transforms into liability. Systems designed to prevent collapse hasten it, and still, the records remain calm. There is no outcry against the land, no direct questioning of the methods employed. Responsibility dissolves, attributed to divine will, to imbalance, to fate. Human agency fades into roles of maintenance and administration. This diffusion preserves cohesion and shields the system from critique. If failure originates beyond human design, design itself is left unquestioned. Over time, this posture spreads beyond Sumer. Successor cultures inherit the logic. Control replaces conversation, management replaces understanding, and civilization becomes a project of containment. Landscapes degrade, systems expand beyond resilience. Each society believes itself uniquely advanced, yet reenacts familiar patterns. The memory of earlier restraint fades, replaced by a confident certainty, while the Sumerians themselves still sense the tension, the land turning against its people, abundance fading into scarcity. But even these observations never mature into structural critique. They are absorbed into cycles of mourning and restoration. Ritualizing loss softens its causes. Grief replaces inquiry. Acceptance replaces adaptation. The quiet tragedy of Sumer lies not in collapse itself, but in the refusal to learn differently from it. Civilization survives by repeating what once worked, even as conditions change. Memory becomes circular, and the range of imagination contracts. Alternatives vanish not because they are proven wrong, but because they are unimagined. The Sumerians did not lack intelligence, awareness, or attention. They lacked permission. The system they built did not allow reconsideration. Stability required silence. Silence demanded forgetting. As canals silted and soils whitened with salt, civilization completed its inward turn. Efficiency remained, yet exhaustion deepened. Confidence grew, yet constraints multiplied. This posture would be inherited and magnified by those who followed. Forgetting would feel inevitable. Beneath routines, rituals, and the measured gaze, however, the land continued to change. It honored neither tradition nor order. It responded only to reality. In the quiet dissonance between human systems built to endure and a world that refused to remain static, civilization's earliest lessons lingered unspoken and unresolved. Survival through control alone forgets how to listen. Systems harden, repetition replaces reflection, and meaning itself begins to thin not through loss of information, but through loss of intimacy. The world is still named, measured, recorded, yet no longer deeply felt. Symbols survive, but the sensations that once gave them weight fade. Early Sumerian imagery carried urgency because it arose from lived tension. Gods were unpredictable. Nature was generous and violent alike. Over time, immediacy recedes. Rituals continue, but emotional charge softens. Participation replaces encounter. Loss, once alarming, becomes normalized. Floods, famine, abandonment are endured within familiar frames. Laments guide emotion into acceptance rather than action. Acceptance, repeated over generations, reshapes expectation. Desire narrows. Ambition adjusts downward. The future is imagined as continuation rather than transformation. Stability, even diminished stability, became the horizon of aspiration. This emotional economy training populations to endure was more than practical. It was a mechanism for governance. A society habituated to strain is easier to guide than one motivated to question. When suffering is framed as inevitable, responsibility disperses. The system endures even as conditions worsen. Written texts, once a reflection of personal experience, transform into instruments of procedural repetition. Individual voice fades, and grief is expressed only within prescribed limits. Prayers follow predictable patterns. Gestures of mourning become standardized, and personal emotion is absorbed into public order. The system accommodates sorrow, but excludes reconsideration. Identity itself is reconfigured around function. Individuals exist primarily as roles worker, scribe, priest, ruler. Meaning derives from contribution to continuity rather than exploration of possibility. To exist well is to perform correctly. This alignment generates a brittle resilience. The society can absorb shocks without immediate collapse, but its flexibility is limited. When conditions exceed known limits, imaginative adaptation is absent. There is no language for reconfiguration, only for restoration. Archaeological evidence hints at these moments. Settlements shrink, art simplifies, cultural expression contracts. These signs are not ignorance, but exhaustion. Yet even then, the posture holds. There is no recorded turn toward radical rethinking. Silence persists, and narrowing completes itself. Later observers often misread this silence as certainty. They see order and assume confidence, longevity and assume success. But longevity can coexist with quiet diminishment. The Sumerians endured by lowering the volume of possibility. They preserved structure while allowing other dimensions, emotional depth, creative exploration, alternative modes of thought to fade. This pattern extends beyond Sumer. Successor civilizations ritualize loss, standardize grief, and normalize strain. Over generations, extraordinary events become ordinary. What was once unacceptable becomes expected. People forget not only alternatives, but the very feeling that alternatives could exist. The world appears fixed, complete, and immutable. Questions lose urgency, and urgency itself the spark of adaptation dims. Memory stagnates. History becomes archive rather than teacher, consulted for authority rather than insight. The Sumerians stand at the threshold of this transition, early enough to sense the tension, late enough to accept its necessity. Their world required restraint to survive, and that restraint reshaped emotional life itself. Adaptation became inheritance. Institutions, myths, rituals, and social expectations passed forward not only tools and knowledge, but a way of feeling about the world. Endurance over wonder, control over curiosity, repetition over risk. Stability is preserved, but at a quiet, cumulative cost. In moments of collapse, when structures fail and rituals lose coherence, fragments of old attention resurface. Confusion spreads, anxiety deepens. Without familiar frameworks, people feel untethered. Yet even then, recovery instinctively seeks restoration rather than reinvention. The cycle resumes, slightly altered, but fundamentally unchanged. Memory closes again, prioritizing continuity over comprehension. The Sumerians may not have named this pattern, but they lived within it. Their legacy is not merely first cities or the invention of writing, but a template for survival through emotional containment. Centuries later, civilizations inherit not only forms and technologies, but the posture itself. This internalization shapes the emotional lives of individuals. People learn to calibrate desire to fit permissible outcomes. Ambition adjusts downward, hope is constrained, and curiosity contracts to manageable corridors. Stability, even when fragile, becomes the horizon of aspiration. Over time, repetition supplants reflection. Rituals, prayers, and labor are performed not to understand the world, but to maintain continuity. Compliance feels natural because it is rehearsed, expected, and sanctioned. Authority thrives not through persuasion, but through the invisible weight of custom, of repetition, of inherited expectation. Kings do not command. They perform within a lattice of priests, scribes, omens, and precedent. Authority diffuses into structure. Blame, responsibility, and consequence dissolve into ritualized patterns. Human agency is contained within the operational needs of survival. Disobedience is noted, but not interrogated. Disruption is addressed, but not understood. Omens proliferate, laws emphasize punishment, and divine favor validates human arrangements. The quiet power of this system lies in its subtlety. It trains generations to endure rather than to ask why, to accept rather than to investigate, to preserve form rather than to imagine transformation. Over time, endurance becomes indistinguishable from wisdom. The original tension, the awareness that survival carries costs and that structure is provisional, recedes. The inheritance is structural, emotional, and cognitive. Individuals internalize limits. The imagination contracts around sanctioned spaces, and what is missing is slowly forgotten. Civilization becomes elaborate without becoming reflective. Complexity increases horizontally across institutions and practices, while the foundations, the assumptions that govern thought, behavior, and perception, remain untouched. Change occurs within the frame. The frame itself remains unquestioned. Even as confidence grows in successive cultures, the cost of error increases. Scale amplifies rigidity. Local adjustments that once sufficed now demand systemic reform. Yet the language for such transformation is absent. Endurance remains, but insight atrophies. What persists feels inevitable, and the imagination that once sensed provisionality yields to the authority of structure. Civilization survives, but the ability to perceive its fragility diminishes. The Sumerians' caution transforms into precedent, a pattern repeated and magnified by successors, creating systems that endure not through wisdom, but through repetition, expectation, and the quiet discipline of conformity. As generations pass, the quiet patterns of endurance become invisible, absorbed into the fabric of daily life. Civilization breathes its own limits as if they were air. Streets, walls, and canals organize movement and production. Calendars and laws organize time and conduct. Life unfolds in repeated roles: worker, priest, scribe, ruler, citizen. Each role carries expectations, and meaning derives from conformity rather than exploration. Imagination does not vanish entirely, but it learns to operate in sanctioned spaces, in the ornamentation of ritual, in the repetition of mythic narratives. Creativity becomes performance, celebration, or praise. It rarely questions, rarely destabilizes, rarely proposes alternatives that could disrupt the fragile continuity of the system. Through this long habituation, people internalize a subtle emotional economy. Desire narrows. Hope is constrained. Grief is ritualized. Loss is acknowledged, yet always contained within predictable gestures and prescribed language. Pain becomes procedural. Endurance becomes virtue. Stability is moralized, and deviation is implicitly dangerous. Over centuries, the absence of alternatives feels natural. People stop noticing what is missing. The world appears complete, and yet, beneath the surface, the residue of tension persists. It surfaces in mythic exaggerations, in inconsistencies of record, in moments of sudden environmental strain, in fleeting artistic expression that seems too raw, too urgent, too alive. These fragments hint at an earlier relationship to contingency, a sense that life could be otherwise, yet they are absorbed, reinterpreted, and domesticated within the dominant frameworks of ritual and governance. Authority thrives in this environment. Power no longer persuades, it persists. Continuity becomes its own proof, endurance its own legitimacy. The gods reinforce this order. Divine favor mirrors administrative success. Omens validate outcomes after the fact. Responsibility is diffused, hidden in structure rather than exercised in decision. The Sumerians' early articulation of this trade between survival and insight, between stability and curiosity, remains the template. Successor civilizations inherit it, amplifying scale, intensifying control, standardizing further, yet rarely questioning the foundation of continuity itself. Expansion replaces endurance, confidence replaces caution, growth replaces balance. The original humility, the original provisionality, is lost to interpretation, leaving behind durable systems that survive long after the humans who created them have disappeared. In this final inheritance, civilization becomes a reflection of its own survival mechanisms. Systems endure, rituals continue, and memory enforces repetition. Yet the deeper questions remain deferred. What does it mean to live wisely? What is the cost of control? What might have been possible if imagination had been allowed to flourish alongside endurance? These questions, unspoken, accumulate in the background of human experience. The legacy of Sumer is thus not only the creation of urban life, writing, and law, but the creation of a framework in which survival and silence intertwine, shaping thought, perception, and emotion across millennia. It is a shadow that persists, patient and quiet, holding the weight of possibilities once felt, then slowly, carefully, allowed to fade. If this exploration of history, civilization, and the patterns that shape human experience resonated with you, consider subscribing for more content that examines the past, questions the present, and reflects on the hidden currents guiding our world. Like, share, and stay connected, because understanding endurance, memory, and the quiet lessons of civilizations is a journey best taken together.